Where did you get this? Lily Hartman nearly dropped the tarnished music box she'd just carried out of the Providence auction house, startled by the sharp, controlled urgency in the stranger's voice. He'd crossed the parking lot fast, cornering her beside her car before she'd even gotten her keys out, his composed, expensive exterior cracking with something raw the moment his eyes landed on the box in her arms. I bought it, Lily said, instinctively tightening her grip on the box. At the auction. Lot 42. Why? Where did the auction house get it? The man pressed, his voice tight, his eyes fixed on the engraving barely visible beneath the tarnish along the box's base. I don't know. Estate liquidation probably. That's most of what comes through here. Lily studied him, dark suit, controlled urgency, an intensity that made her instinctively step back toward her car door. Why does it matter to you? He was quiet for a moment, visibly working to control whatever had cracked open behind his composed exterior. That engraving, he said finally, belonged to my late wife. This music box was hers. It should never have been sold at public auction. Lily's stomach tightened, wariness sharpening fast. I paid $8 for a broken music box with a jammed mechanism. I don't know anything about your wife or how this ended up here. I believe you, the man said, something controlled and careful entering his voice. I'm not accusing you of anything. I need to understand how it got here, that's all. I restore pieces like this for a living, Lily said, still wary but curious despite herself. It's part of how I make rent. I don't just hand over something I bought fair and square because a stranger corners me in a parking lot asking questions. Something shifted in his expression, not offense but a kind of grudging, unexpected respect. That's fair, he said. My name is Christian Mancini. I'd like to explain properly if you'll let me rather than interrogating you in a parking lot. Lily hesitated, weighing curiosity against caution. Mancini. She didn't recognize the name specifically, but something in the careful, deferential way the auction house's own security guard had glanced toward him moments earlier told her it carried weight she didn't fully understand yet. I'm not giving you the box, she said. But you can come by my shop tomorrow if you want to explain. I open at 9. Thank you, Christian said, something like relief crossing his controlled features. I'll be there. He left without further pressure, and Lily sat in her car for a long moment afterward, turning the tarnished, broken music box over in her hands, studying the faint engraving that had apparently meant so much to a stranger that he'd nearly lost his composure entirely over an $8 auction find. She had no idea, driving home through Providence's evening traffic, that the box's jammed mechanism hid something considerably more significant than sentimental value, or that the quiet, controlled man who'd cornered her in a parking lot ruled over one of the city's most feared criminal organizations. A fact she wouldn't fully understand until it was already far too late to simply hand the box over and walk away. Lily Hartman was 29 years old, and the small restoration workshop she rented in Providence's Federal Hill neighborhood represented the entire fragile structure of a life she'd built alone, patiently, after leaving a corporate design job that had paid considerably more but had never once felt like anything worth building a life around. She lived in a modest studio above the workshop itself, an arrangement that saved on rent but meant her entire existence. Work, sleep, the rare quiet evening, unfolded within the same four walls filled with disassembled clocks, tarnished silver, and the countless small damaged objects other people had given up on. Her financial pressure was constant and specific. The workshop's rent always due before she felt entirely ready for it, and a business built slowly, piece by piece, on restoring and reselling exactly the kind of overlooked, broken items nobody else wanted to bother saving. Her personal goal, held close and rarely discussed with the handful of regular customers who'd found their way to her shop through word of mouth, was to eventually expand into teaching restoration classes, passing along a skill she taught herself almost entirely through patient trial and error, to anyone else who believed damaged things were still worth the careful effort of saving. Her emotional wound ran deep and specific. Her own mother had walked away from the family when Lily was 12, leaving behind almost nothing except a small, broken jewelry box Lily had spent years trying and failing to fix, before finally succeeding at 17 and understanding in that moment exactly why she'd fallen in love with restoration work in the first place. She'd promised herself, fixing that box after years of failed attempts, that she would never treat anything, object or person, as too far gone to be worth patient, careful attention. Her moral boundary was simple and unbending. She didn't give up on things simply because they were broken, complicated, or inconvenient to fix, regardless of how much easier walking away might be. Her practical skill, honed through years of self-taught restoration work, was an exacting, patient attention to mechanical detail. Understanding how small interlocking pieces fit together, how to coax stubborn, rusted mechanisms back into motion without forcing them, the kind of careful competence that came from respecting an object's original design rather than simply overpowering its damage. The recurring object she carried, worn smooth in her jacket pocket from years of habit, was a small brass gear from the very first music box she'd ever successfully restored, not valuable on its own, but a private reminder of the exact moment she'd understood that patient, careful work could bring something broken back to life. The week before Christian Mancini cornered her in the auction house parking lot, Lily had spent 3 unpaid hours helping an elderly neighbor repair a cherished mantel clock that had stopped the same week her husband passed away, refusing to accept payment for work that felt, to Lily, less like a transaction and more like helping someone hold on to something that mattered. Nobody had asked her to do that. She'd done it because watching someone lose a meaningful, fixable connection to a person they loved felt like exactly the kind of small abandonment she refused to participate in. That same instinct, patient, careful, entirely without calculation, was exactly what made her bring the tarnished, jammed music box home in the first place, recognizing immediately, even amid the auction's chaos, that its damage was the kind that patient work could actually undo. Sitting at her workbench that evening, examining the music box's jammed mechanism under bright, focused light, Lily found herself turning over Christian Mancini's raw, unguarded reaction in the parking lot. The specific intensity of a man who'd clearly expected an ordinary evening and instead found something unexpectedly, painfully significant. She opened the box's outer casing carefully, beginning the slow, methodical work of understanding exactly what had jammed the mechanism, and found herself, almost without meaning to, curious about the woman this box had once belonged to, curious enough that when Christian arrived at her shop's door promptly at 9 the next morning, she found herself more interested in hearing the full story than she'd expected to be. "I meant what I said," she told him, setting the box carefully on her workbench between them. "I'm not giving it to you. But I'll let you watch me repair it if you want to be here for it. Seems like the least complicated compromise." Christian studied her, something unreadable moving behind his controlled composure. "That's more generous than I expected," he said. "I'm curious about myself," Lily admitted. "About what actually jammed this mechanism. And about the woman it belonged to, if you're willing to tell me." She had no idea yet how completely that simple, curious compromise was about to upend the careful, patient life she'd built her entire adult identity around. Christian returned to Lily's workshop the following morning, and the morning after that, settling into a worn armchair near her workbench with a quiet, watchful patience that reminded Lily, oddly, of the careful attention she brought to her own restoration work. "Tell me about her," Lily said on the third morning, carefully loosening a corroded screw that had been jamming the music box's inner mechanism for what she suspected had been years. "Your wife." Christian was quiet for a moment, something guarded moving behind his composed exterior. "Sophia," he said finally. "She died 4 years ago. Cancer, slow and difficult toward the end. This box played her favorite childhood lullaby. She kept it on her nightstand our entire marriage." "I'm sorry," Lily said, meaning it, her hands stilling briefly on the delicate mechanism. "After she died, her family handled the estate liquidation," Christian continued, something tight and controlled in his voice. "I was grieving, not paying close enough attention to details I should have caught. I never authorized this specific box to be sold. It should have come to me." "How did it end up at a public auction then?" Lily asked, genuine curiosity pulling her deeper into the mystery despite her earlier caution. "I don't fully know yet," Christian admitted. "That's part of why finding it matters so much." Lily studied him. The careful, controlled way he held his grief, like a man accustomed to keeping every visible emotion tightly managed except in moments exactly like this one. "Who are you really?" she asked. "People don't usually corner strangers in parking lots over an $8 auction item unless something considerably bigger is actually at stake." Christian was quite a long moment weighing how much to share. "My family has real estate and hospitality interests across Providence," he said carefully. "Also, other interests, older ones connected to a name that carries weight if you know the city's history well enough." "Mancini," Lily said slowly, something clicking into place from fragments of neighborhood conversation she'd half-registered over the years. Mafia. That's the word people use, Christian said, not denying it. Every instinct told Lily to retreat into caution, but something about his careful, unguarded grief, offered without excuse, without minimizing what it meant, kept her curiosity engaged despite the wariness settling in her chest. That doesn't change my answer, she said finally. I'm still not giving you the box outright. But it doesn't change our arrangement either unless you want it to. It doesn't, Christian said, something like relief in his controlled voice. 3 days later, disassembling the mechanism's inner workings with the same patient, exacting care she brought to every restoration, Lily's careful fingers discovered something unexpected. A small, cleverly hidden compartment beneath the music box's mechanism, a false bottom that had been jamming the entire assembly for years. There's something back here, she said, working the hidden panel loose with delicate precision. Christian leaned forward instantly, his composed exterior cracking with sudden, sharp attention. Inside the compartment, folded carefully, was a single page of handwritten numbers, columns of figures, dates, notations that meant absolutely nothing to Lily but that made Christian go completely still the moment his eyes landed on the handwriting. That's my father-in-law's handwriting, he said, voice gone tight and controlled. Victor Santoro's. What is it? Lily asked, watching his expression shift from grief into something considerably sharper. I don't know exactly, Christian admitted, studying the numbers with growing intensity. But these figures, I've suspected discrepancies in an old estate account for years. Money that should have gone to Sophia's inheritance that never fully materialized. I never had proof. This might be exactly that. Lily's stomach tightened with sudden, uneasy understanding. You're telling me this box wasn't just sentimental. It's evidence of something. Possibly, Christian said. I need to look into this properly. Would you let me take this page at least, even if you keep the box itself? Lily considered his careful request, weighing genuine curiosity about the mystery against a growing unease about exactly what she might have unknowingly stumbled into. Take it, she said finally. I don't need whatever's actually in these numbers. I just wanted to restore the box's mechanism. Thank you, Christian said, carefully folding the page and tucking it into his jacket. I need you to understand something though before I leave today. What's that? If this page connects to what I suspect it does, Christian said grimly, it means someone in my late wife's family has been hiding financial fraud for years. And once word spreads that this box surfaced at public auction, which it likely already has, given how these things travel through certain circles, that person may realize exactly what was hidden inside it. Lily's unease sharpened into something closer to real concern. You're telling me I might be in danger over a page of numbers I don't even understand. I'm telling you it's a possibility I need to take seriously, Christian said. I don't want to frighten you unnecessarily, but I'd rather warn you honestly than let you discover the risk unprepared. Lily looked down at the music box, still only partially restored, its mechanism finally free of the jam that had held it silent for years, and felt the careful, patient life she'd built around fixing broken things began to feel considerably more complicated than she'd ever anticipated. Christian's investigation into the numbers accelerated over the following week, and though Lily told herself repeatedly that her involvement had ended the moment she handed over the hidden page, his presence in her workshop only grew more frequent, more personally invested. The figures match discrepancies I've suspected for years, he told her, spreading additional documentation across her workbench during one visit. And a estate account connected to Sophia's family holdings. Money that should have transferred to her inheritance but never fully materialized after her father's death. Your father-in-law's dead? Lily asked, surprised by the detail. No, Christian said. Victor Santoro is very much alive. He's simply been managing the family's remaining holdings since Sophia's death, and I've never had proof that anything was actually wrong with how he's handled them. Until now. Lily's practical, detail-oriented curiosity kept pulling her deeper into the mystery despite her earlier intention to stay uninvolved. What happens if you prove he's been hiding fraud? It exposes decades of financial misconduct, Christian said grimly. And it likely destroys what remains of my late wife's family's reputation, along with any relationship I've maintained with her surviving relatives out of respect for her memory. That's a significant cost, Lily said. It is, Christian agreed. But if he's been stealing from an estate that should have gone to Sophia, and by extension to me, I can't simply let that stand because exposing it is uncomfortable. The external consequence of Christian's growing investigation arrived faster than either anticipated. Word apparently spread through channels neither of them fully understood. Auction houses, appraisers, the small, interconnected world of estate liquidators. That Sophia Mancini's old music box had surfaced at public auction, purchased by an unremarkable local restoration artist. Victor Santoro, Christian's father-in-law, apparently learned of it within days. He's called me twice already, Christian told Lily, visible tension in his composed exterior. Asking pointed questions about the box, about whether I'd found anything inside it. I gave him nothing specific, but I don't think that satisfied him. You think he knows what was hidden in there? Lily said. I think he's worried enough to be asking, Christian said. Which tells me considerably more than an innocent man's curiosity would. Days later, Lily returned to her workshop after a brief supply run to find the door's lock had been tampered with. Not successfully breached but clearly attempted, scratches visible along the mechanism that hadn't been there that morning. She called Christian immediately, adrenaline cutting through her usual careful composure. Someone tried to break into my shop. Christian's response was instant, sharp with alarm. Don't go inside alone. I'm coming now. He arrived within 20 minutes, his composed authority radiating through the small workshop as he assessed the attempted break-in with careful, methodical attention. This wasn't random, he said. Someone specifically targeted your shop, likely looking for whatever else might be hidden connected to that box. I already gave you the page, Lily said. There's nothing else here to find. Whoever attempted this doesn't know that, Christian said grimly. Victor's people, if it's connected to him, would assume you might have kept a copy, or noticed something else during the restoration. Lily's instinctive independence flared, even through genuine unease. I don't want to be pulled into your family's inheritance dispute. I fixed a broken music box. That's the whole extent of what I meant to do here. I understand that completely, Christian said. I'm not asking you to become involved beyond what's already happened. I'm telling you honestly that you may already be at risk regardless of what either of us intended. The escalation continued within days. Lily's workshop was broken into fully this time. Tools scattered across the floor, several half-finished restoration pieces damaged or destroyed entirely in what was clearly a frantic, thorough search for something specific. She called Christian, her voice shaking with a mixture of fury and fear she hadn't fully processed yet. They actually got in this time. Half of my current projects are ruined. Someone tore this place apart looking for something I already gave you. Christian's alarm was immediate and absolute. I'm coming and I want to move you somewhere secure immediately. This is my shop, Lily said, fear and fierce protectiveness tangled together. Years of work. I'm not just abandoning it because someone decided to search for it. I'm not asking you to abandon it, Christian said. I want to add real security here and I want you to stay somewhere protected while we finish exposing exactly what Victor's hiding. You keep the shop running. You keep working. I'm not interested in taking away the life you've built here. Lily surveyed the wreckage of her scattered tools and damaged pieces, weighing genuine fear against her fierce reluctance to let her carefully built independence dissolve into Christian's dangerous world. If I accept this, she said finally, the shop stays open. I keep working exactly as I always have. This isn't permission for you to manage my life beyond what's actually necessary for safety. Agreed completely, Christian said without hesitation. Whatever you need. She packed a small bag that evening under the watchful eye of Christian's driver, the brass gear from her very first restoration tucked carefully into her coat pocket, and didn't look back at the workshop she'd built her entire adult identity around. Whatever came next, there was no simple path back to her ordinary, careful independence anymore. The protected quarters near Christian's estate, where Lily now stayed while her workshop's security was reinforced, became over the following days less a temporary refuge and more a strange, complicated space neither of them fully acknowledged out loud. Scene 1 came the next morning, practical and immediate. Lily set up a temporary workbench in the guest suite, insisting on continuing her restoration work despite the unfamiliar surroundings, and found Christian watching with quiet, genuine interest as she carefully continued repairing the music box's outer casing. You don't have to keep working on it, he said. given everything it's already cost you. I want to finish it properly, Lily said, her patient, exacting attention focused on the delicate hinges. It deserves to actually work again regardless of everything else happening around it. That's not really about your family's dispute. That's just about respecting the object itself. Something shifted in Christian's expression, watching her careful dedication to a task that had nothing to do with the danger or the fraud investigation, everything to do with simply finishing what she'd started properly. Scene 2 arrived 3 days later, an argument sharper than either expected. Christian announced over a quiet dinner that he wanted to arrange for Lily's workshop to remain closed indefinitely while the investigation into Victor continued. Absolutely not, Lily said immediately. We agreed the shop stays open. You don't get to change the terms every time you get nervous. Lily, if Victor's people escalate further, having an active, publicly accessible workshop creates ongoing risk. Then increase security around the shop specifically, but you don't get to take away years of work because you're worried, she said, voice rising with genuine frustration. That workshop is everything I've built for myself. I am not going to let fear take that away, not even temporarily. Christian sat back, absorbing the force of it, and for the first time actually paused instead of immediately defending his position. You're right, he said finally. Tell me what would actually work instead. Lily's anger softened at the honesty. Increase security around the shop. Don't close it. Done, Christian said, meaning it. Scene 3 came on the 7th night, when Lily found him alone on the estate's back terrace, a glass of scotch he wasn't drinking held loosely in one hand. Sophia used to say I collected broken things because I was afraid of admitting I needed fixing myself, Christian said, before she'd even asked what was on his mind. She meant it kindly mostly, but she wasn't entirely wrong. I've spent years since her death keeping everything and everyone at a careful, controlled distance, telling myself that was simply who I was, not something I was actively choosing. That's not an easy thing to admit, Lily said, sitting down beside him. Watching you work on that music box, Christian continued, with the same patient, careful attention you'd bring to anything genuinely worth saving, it's made me realize how much I've avoided that same patience with myself, or with anyone close to me, since Sophia died. I've been going through the motions of grief without actually letting anyone see the parts that are still genuinely broken. I understand that better than you'd expect, Lily said quietly. My mother left when I was 12. I spent years trying to fix a broken jewelry box she left behind, not really understanding until much later that I was trying to fix something about myself through that box, not just the mechanism itself. It took me years to understand that patient work on something broken doesn't automatically fix what's broken in you. Sometimes it's just practice for eventually being ready to let someone actually see the broken parts directly. He looked at her, something raw and unguarded moving across his face. You keep finding exactly the thing I need to hear. I've had a lot of practice with patient, careful work, Lily said simply. On objects mostly. Maybe it translates. They sat in silence that wasn't uncomfortable, the estate's grounds quiet around them, and something passed between them that wasn't yet spoken but was undeniably present. Two people who'd both learned, through different kinds of loss, exactly how much courage genuine patience actually required. It was Marco, Christian's head of security, who broke the moment, appearing at the terrace door, tablet in hand, expression tight. Christian, he said. I finally cross-referenced the handwriting on that hidden page against Victor Santoro's known financial records from that era. It's a definitive match. But there's something else. Lily, you mentioned noticing additional markings on the box itself. Lily's brow furrowed, thinking back through her careful restoration work. There's something faintly etched beneath the lid, she said slowly. I noticed it while cleaning the interior surface, but I assumed it was just decorative scroll work. I didn't think to mention it because it seemed unrelated to the hidden compartment. Show me, Christian said, already moving toward where the partially restored box sat on Lily's temporary workbench. Lily retrieved the box carefully, angling it beneath the room's bright overhead light, and pointed to a faint series of numbers etched delicately beneath the lid's inner surface, considerably harder to notice than the hidden compartment, clearly meant to be overlooked entirely. Christian studied the etching with sharpening intensity. This is a second set of numbers, he said slowly. Different from the ones on the hidden page. This looks like it could be an account reference, maybe a routing number. You think Victor didn't know this was here, Marco said. I think, Christian said, something cold and absolute settling behind his controlled expression, that Sophia hid this herself deliberately in a place even her own father wouldn't think to look. She must have discovered something about the fraud before she died, and tried to preserve evidence of it in the one place she trusted would eventually be found. Lily felt a chill move through her, understanding the full weight of what her careful restoration work had actually uncovered. She left this for you to find. She left it for someone to find, Christian said quietly. I don't think she could have predicted it would take 4 years and a stranger's careful restoration work to actually surface. Whatever fragile calm they'd built over the past week had just shifted into something considerably more consequential. The second set of numbers, once Christian's forensic accountants decoded it fully, revealed an account routing number connected directly to an offshore holding that Victor Santoro had used for over a decade to systematically divert funds from the family's estate accounts. Money that should have gone to Sophia's inheritance, siphoned quietly into an account only Victor controlled. He's been stealing from his own daughter's inheritance for over 10 years, Christian said, studying the full evidence with barely controlled fury. Sophia found out somehow before she died. She hid this evidence specifically so it would eventually surface, even though she never got the chance to expose it herself. That's why she hid it in something so personal, Lily said, understanding settling with quiet, painful clarity. Something she knew you'd eventually come looking for, connected to her memory specifically. She trusted me to find it, Christian said, something raw moving across his composed features. Even though it took considerably longer than either of us could have anticipated. Victor, apparently sensing the investigation's momentum through channels he'd maintained even after Sophia's death, moved fast once he understood the full scope of what had been uncovered. Lily received an anonymous, chilling message on her workshop's business line. Stop helping Mancini dig into things that aren't your concern, or the next break-in won't just damage your tools. Lily's hands shook as she relayed the message to Christian. He's threatening me directly now. Then we move faster than he expects, Christian said, voice going cold and absolute. I want this exposed publicly, evidence strong enough that Victor can't simply intimidate his way out of consequences. That evening, Christian's own associates grew visibly uneasy as the full scope of what confronting Victor would cost became clear. Enzo Bellandi, one of Christian's senior advisors, cornered him in his office. Victor's family connections have provided political and social cover for your own family's legitimate business interests for years, Enzo said. Exposing his fraud publicly doesn't just end his reputation. It severs relationships your family has relied on for decades, and it drags Sophia's memory through exactly the kind of public scrutiny you've spent 4 years trying to protect her from. I know, Christian said. I'm doing it anyway. Why? Enzo pressed. You could quietly recover the stolen funds through private legal channels without public exposure. Protect Sophia's memory, protect your family's political relationships, and still get justice for the theft. Because Sophia hid this evidence specifically so it would be found, Christian said. Not buried quietly, not settled privately behind closed doors. She wanted the truth to actually surface. I'm not going to honor her memory by doing exactly what her father did. Hiding something inconvenient to protect the family's reputation. The confrontation escalated faster than anyone anticipated. 2 days later, returning to her workshop to check on the reinforced security installation, Lily found herself cornered near the shop's back entrance by a man she didn't recognize but whose careful, deliberate stance raised every instinct she'd developed over the past tense weeks. You've caused Mr. Santoro is in considerable trouble, the man said, his voice low and controlled in a way that sent an immediate alarm through her. A restoration artist who doesn't know when to leave well enough alone. Christian's people already have everything they need, Lily said, backing carefully toward the workshop's main entrance, calculating distance with the same steady instinct she'd developed handling delicate, dangerous mechanisms. Whatever happens to me now doesn't erase what's already been uncovered. Maybe not, the man said, closing the distance. But it removes the person who actually found it. Lily's pulse hammered, but her voice stayed steadier than she felt. You're not thinking clearly. If something happens to me now, right after Victor's fraud has already been connected through forensic accounting, that makes him look considerably guiltier, not less. Something in the man's expression flickered, genuine calculation warring with cornered urgency. Before he could respond, Christian's security, alerted moments earlier by Lily's careful habitual check-in call, closed the distance and restrained him before he could act further. In the sudden ringing quiet afterward, Christian arrived personally, checking her carefully, his composed authority cracking into raw, visible relief. "Are you hurt?" "Lily, look at me." "I'm okay," she managed, hands finally shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. "We're okay." Christian's hand found hers, steady and certain, and Lily understood that whatever came next would change everything permanently, not just for Victor but for the fragile, careful trust they'd built between them over the past difficult weeks. That evening, Christian gathered his most trusted advisors, laying out the complete evidence. The hidden page, the etched routing number, the forensic accounting trail, Lily's testimony about the direct threat and attempted intimidation, and the weight of what confronting Victor publicly would actually require settling fully into the room. "There's a family gathering this weekend," Marco said. "Meant to formally close out the last of Sophia's estate proceedings. If you expose Victor there, publicly, in front of everyone who matters to both families, there's no room left for him to maneuver his way out of it." "That means everything becomes public at once," Christian said slowly. "The fraud, Sophia's role in hiding the evidence, all of it." "Yes," Marco confirmed. "There's no quiet version of this anymore." Lily, listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "I want to be there," she said. "I found that evidence. If you're going to expose this publicly, my account of exactly how it surfaced needs to be part of making sure it actually holds up." "Lily, Victor already tried to have you once," Christian said. "Standing up publicly against him carries real risk." "Staying quiet carries risk too," Lily said. "I'm not interested in hiding from something I already helped uncover." Christian studied her, torn between every protective instinct he had and the plain truth of what she'd said. "If you come," he said finally, "you stay beside me the entire time. No exceptions." "Agreed," Lily said, her voice steadier than she felt. The family gathering filled a private dining room with relatives, longtime associates, and the careful, formal tension of people gathered to close out a decades-old estate. A ceremony about to become something considerably more consequential. Victor Santoro presided at the head of the table with practiced ease, composed and unbothered, until Christian rose during the formal proceedings, Lily close beside him, the assembled evidence in a folder under his arm. "Before we formally close Sophia's estate," Christian said, his voice carrying clearly across the room, "I need to correct something that's been hidden from this family for over a decade." Victor's composed expression flickered. "Christian, this isn't the appropriate setting." "It's exactly the appropriate setting," Christian said. "Sophia's own estate is what we're gathered to close. She deserves the truth to be part of that closing, not another layer of silence." The room's ambient conversation dropped into sharp, listening silence. Lily stepped forward, laying the hidden page and the decoded routing information on the table where relatives could see it clearly. "This handwriting," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "was hidden inside a music box that belonged to Sophia. I discovered it during a routine restoration, along with a second, more deeply hidden set of numbers etched beneath the lid. Forensic accounting has confirmed both connect directly to an offshore account that's been receiving diverted funds from this family's estate holdings for over 10 years. Victor's composure cracked visibly. "This is absurd. A restoration artist's discovery isn't proof of anything. It's proof enough to warrant the forensic verification that's already been completed," Christian said, voice going cold and absolute. "You've been stealing from your own daughter's inheritance for a decade, Victor. Sophia discovered it before she died. She hid this evidence herself, specifically so it would eventually be found." The room's collective shock rippled outward as the full weight of the accusation settled. Victor's hand moved toward his phone, panic overriding his earlier composure. "You don't understand the pressures I was under," he said, voice rising, desperation cutting through his earlier polish. "Managing this family's holdings, keeping everyone comfortable." "You stole from your own daughter," Christian said. "That's not pressure. That's theft, dressed up as family management." Victor, cornered and exposed in front of the entire gathered family, made one final desperate gambit. "If this becomes public, Christian, it damages Sophia's memory too. Everyone will know her own father. Sophia hid this evidence because she wanted the truth to matter more than comfortable silence," Christian said, something raw and absolute in his voice. I'm not going to dishonor that choice by protecting you instead of honoring what she actually wanted. Security, alerted in advance by Marco, moved in as Christian finished speaking, escorting a visibly shaken Victor from the gathering amid stunned, urgent conversation from the assembled family. The aftermath fractured relationships exactly as Enzo had warned it would. Several relatives, furious at the public exposure of decades-old family fraud, distanced themselves from Christian entirely. The careful political and social relationships his family had maintained with the Santoros for years dissolved along with them, a cost that would reshape Christian's standing within certain circles for years to come. You lost significant relationships your family relied on, Lily told him, finding him alone in his office 3 days later, exhausted in a way she hadn't seen from him before. I lost relationships that were built on protecting exactly the kind of silence that let Victor steal from his own daughter for a decade, Christian said. I'd lose them again without hesitation. Why does that matter so much to you? Lily asked, needing to understand fully. You could have quietly recovered the stolen funds through private channels. Protected Sophia's memory from public scrutiny. For years, I told myself that protecting my late wife's memory meant protecting the family's reputation surrounding her death, Christian said. Watching you uncover evidence she deliberately hid specifically so the truth would eventually surface. That taught me something I should have understood a long time ago. Some of the most valuable things are the ones everyone else has already given up on, or decided weren't worth the effort of protecting properly. Sophia's truth was exactly that. So, in a very different way, was that broken music box everyone else considered worthless enough to sell at public auction for $8. He met her eyes directly. You saw value in something everyone else had already dismissed. That's not a small thing. Lily was quite a long moment, weighing everything he'd admitted against the fierce independence she'd fought to protect throughout this entire ordeal. I need you to understand something too, she said finally. I'm not interested in staying close to you because I feel like I owe you anything for protecting me or exposing Victor or any of it. I restored that box because it deserved patient, careful attention. I'm not going to let gratitude replace something that has to be chosen freely, not even for you. That's exactly what I want you to understand too, Christian said. Whatever you choose next, it has to be entirely yours. Victor's formal arrest followed within the week, the forensic accounting trail and Lily's precise, corroborated testimony leaving no room for his earlier fraud to survive scrutiny. The stolen funds, tracked through the offshore account Sophia had hidden evidence of, began the slow legal process of restoration to the estate they'd originally been meant for. You didn't have to expose everything so publicly, the investigating attorney told Christian afterward. A private settlement would have recovered the funds with considerably less collateral damage to your family's standing. My late wife hid that evidence because she wanted the truth to matter, not just the money, Christian said simply. I wasn't interested in honoring half of what she actually wanted. Lily found him afterward in his estate's quiet garden, autumn light cutting sharp across grounds that had become, over the past difficult weeks, considerably more familiar than she'd ever expected them to be. It's over, Christian said. Victor's facing formal charges. The estate's being properly restored. Whatever comes next, it's built on considerably more honest terms than before. How does that feel? Lily asked. Lighter than I expected, Christian admitted. I spent 4 years believing that protecting Sophia's memory meant protecting the silence surrounding her family's reputation. Watching you patiently uncover exactly what she actually wanted found, I think I finally understand what honoring someone's memory actually requires. 2 months later, Lily's workshop had fully reopened, its reinforced security now simply part of the shop's ordinary rhythm, her restoration work continuing exactly as it always had, patient, careful, unglamorous, and entirely her own. Christian had offered her more than once compensation far beyond what the music box could ever have been worth. Enough to expand her workshop considerably, to hire help, to build something larger than the modest, careful business she'd constructed alone over years. She turned it down every time, gently but firmly, exactly as she'd promised herself she would. You could take the workshop somewhere considerably bigger, he said one evening, finding her at her workbench, carefully finishing the music box's restoration, its mechanism now fully repaired, ready to play Sophia's favorite lullaby again after years of silence. You've more than earned that. I know, Christian said. But this workshop is mine. Built by me over years, Exactly the size and shape I actually wanted it to be. I'm not interested in trading that away just because a bigger option exists now. Then what do you want instead? I want you to keep being someone I see regularly, Lily said, something warm and certain in her voice. Not because you owe me anything for the box or the investigation or any of it. Because somewhere over these past 2 months, that became something I actually chose, not something either of us was given by circumstance. That's already true, Christian said, something soft moving behind his careful expression. She finished the final adjustment on the music box's mechanism, and turned the small key at its base for the first time since she'd bought it, tarnished and jammed, for $8 at a public auction. The lullaby played, soft and clear, the mechanism turning smoothly after years of silence. Christian went very still, listening, something raw and unguarded moving across his face as Sophia's favorite childhood melody filled the quiet workshop. That's it, he said quietly once the melody finished. Exactly as she used to play it. I wanted to finish it properly, Lily said. Regardless of everything else it turned out to hold inside it. She reached into her jacket pocket, fingers finding the small brass gear from her very first restoration, turning it over once before meeting Christian's eyes directly. I think this box taught me something too, she said. Not just that broken things are worth patient effort. That sometimes the most valuable things are exactly the ones everyone else has already given up on. Including people, not just objects. Christian reached for her hand, deliberate and unhurried, entirely hers to accept or decline. I know I complicated your independence the moment I cornered you in that parking lot, he said. I've thought about that a lot. Whether any of this actually helped you or whether it just handed you a different, more dangerous version of the same problem. It did complicate things, Lily admitted honestly. But you also listened every single time I pushed back. That's the difference. You didn't just decide for me and expect gratitude. You let me set the terms even when it clearly would have been easier for you not to, even when it cost your own family's standing to do this properly. Then let's keep building it that way, Christian said, together on whatever terms actually work for both of us. She closed the distance between them herself, deliberate and certain, and kissed him. The choice entirely hers, made with eyes open to exactly what it had cost and exactly what it had given her in return. Lily still keeps that small brass gear in her jacket pocket every day, still restores broken, overlooked things with the same patient, careful attention that once uncovered a decade-old fraud hidden inside an $8 music box. She still believes, more firmly now than ever, that some of the most valuable things in life are exactly the ones everyone else has already given up on. If this story stayed with you, I want to know what you think. Was Lily right to keep restoring the box once she understood how dangerous its secret actually was? Or should she have simply handed it over the moment Christian first asked? Tell me your honest answer in the comments and why you believe it. If stories about patient care uncovering hidden truth resonate with you, subscribe. The next one is coming soon.